you were a rugby player.
Yeah. Yep.
I had no clue.
Well, as my wife says, it comes out relatively frequently because I am a knucklehead, and so I think that is part of being a rugby player is being a little bit of a knucklehead. So,
yep. Oh my gosh, you're not running around the house with a big cup, like holding the big cup up in the house? And
no, but what is really cool is so I had this old rugby jacket I went to this small school in Maine called Colby College.
Yeah.
And so, I had my Colby, rugby warm-up jacket. And the happiest moment was when my teenage daughter, who happened to, at the time, a teenager, just got married last weekend.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. Yeah. She went out with some of her friends wearing my rugby jacket. So I said, all right, that's cool. And I'm cool again for a very short amount of time. So no cups running around, but my rugby jacket lives on.
Look, Chris, you have I had a leather jacket from high school, not quite the same, but a leather jacket from high school. And the kids were doing 90s Day or something when they were kids or something. And I was like, oh, you could wear this. And they're like, we're not wearing that, Dad.
No, we're not touching that, Dad. It's too lame. That's weird. Yeah.
You want high-waisted jeans, but not this really cool leather jacket? They're like,
come on.
Not touching that.
Yep.
Oh my God. All right. Well, are you ready, Chris? You want to jump right in?
Rock and roll.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome to the CXR channel, our premier podcast for talent acquisition and talent management. Listen in as the CXR community discusses a wide range of topics focused on attracting, engaging, and retaining the best talent. We're glad you're here.
Okay, welcome to another fun episode of our CXR Recruiting Community Podcast. You have found the spot where we sit and talk for a few minutes each week with an industry professional, practitioner, or friend about what's going on in the recruiting space and what is top of mind for them. Now, if you have joined us on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and we're live, please go ahead and jump into the chat and say hello to us. Hello, Saudi Arabia. I already see we've got our first one in there. But feel free to drop your profile link in there, so that everyone can connect with you online or add a question as we go. And we'll see if we can get that question thrown out to the guest and get you an answer. As a reminder, this show is really a labor of love, and it's driven by your likes, comments, and guest requests, not ads or paying guests or sponsors. But it's not just your subscription links that bring us back, but it's your request for us to interview somebody of interest to you. So if you've got a request, drop it in the chat or connect with us at cxr.works and let us know who you'd like to see on the show. Now, today's guest, no stranger to the podcast, and welcoming back Chris Forman. He's industry friend, founder, CEO at Appcast. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Thanks so much, Chris. Great to be here.
Hey, good. I love zooming people in from the green room. It just feels so formal and technical. Yeah, very fancy. Chris, for those who don't know you, why don't you give us sort of an escalator pitch on who is Chris Forman and why do we care what Chris has to say today?
Well, I'm unsure if I can answer the last question about why you should care to listen to me, but I'll tell you about who I am. Chris Forman. I'm 52 years old. I have lived for the last 30 years right near Dartmouth College. Angela and I have 4 kids, and we live in a little dairy farm. But candidly, it's not. You can't really make a living with milk. And so I go to work. And for the last 20 years, what I've been doing is I've partnered with an amazing group of people up here and around the globe to build a series of recruiting technology companies. The first business I ran was a company by the name of Airs. So if anyone out there is Airs trained or used our kind of the industry's first recruitment CRM platform, that's us. We sold that to the largest recruitment outsourcing firm at the time in 2008, The Right Thing.
Yep.
Helped grow that business and then helped sell it to ADP. And after that, I founded an incubator called Start Date Labs. And, we graduated 3 companies out of that. And Appcast is the most recent one. And by far and away, the most successful kind of rec tech business the team here has ever built. So, Appcast, for those of you who don't know, we make software that helps large organizations, specifically enterprises and more everyday global enterprises, buy and optimize job ads more effectively. Because more often than not, that's one of the biggest parts of a recruiting budget outside of people. And so the idea is software can do some things really well. And one of the things it does really well is do math. And so by doing math better, you can sometimes make your job ads give you more hires and cost less.
Chris, I got into recruiting because I was told there would be no math.
Yeah. There's math in everything. I tell my kids that. They're like, I don't like, well, you better get good at it because math is. Yep.
Like, I just want to say, Mrs. Payne, my 8th grade math teacher, I am so sorry. I was unforgivable. Math is a thing, and I appreciate it. I'm sorry. Look, Chris, you are an authority on job advertising tech, right? It's technology. You mentioned you've been at Appcast. I think you said founded it in 2014. So that's 9, almost 10. There's the math again, right?
Yep.
So to put the topic, I think, of job boards and programmatic advertising in front of you is kind of a no-brainer. So what I want to do is, let's just jump in and talk about it a little bit. Like, let me ask you, like, what's going on in the world of recruitment advertising that we should really be paying attention to?
Yeah, there's a couple kind of, I guess I call them macro trends that are going. Some of them are related to what we do as a business, and some of them actually are more about content and job seeker engagement. So, let's start with probably the most commercially agnostic one, and that is that there is a huge push, in fact, being led by Indeed, to ensure that compensation is on every job ad. And
right. Yeah. Well, that's a big topic right now.
It's a huge thing, and it's huge because Indeed basically made a decision that either you're going to post your compensation or they're going to estimate it, which I applaud completely. I applaud it not for any shall we say altruistic reason. I'm going to do, going back to the math thing, job ads that have compensation, specifically market-based compensation. So like, if the market for a particular job is $25 an hour and you're paying $15 an hour, that doesn't help.
Right.
But if you pay market rates, putting that information in the ad dramatically increases your apply to hire rates and actually increases the engagement that you have on your job ads. And so, I think oftentimes the conversations that folks are having about whether or not this is good or bad, gets into some kind of altruistic, gee whiz, what's this going to do to the culture? Do I believe that we should be publishing these things? How are existing?
Right.
There's a lot of stuff which is all real, but as a math guy, as a marketer, it's good. It's really, you should do it. And it's a difference.
Our leaders, right? We got about 100 or so odd leaders that are within the CXR membership, and they're torn, right? They're really torn because we actually have Indeed coming on the show in a couple of weeks where we're going to talk about this and why they pushed this initiative forward. But leaders sort of struggle sometimes, and especially if the estimate is a little bit off of what they're actually going to be paying in that market, and it does present a little bit of a challenge for them. I think from a transparency standpoint, and I think it sort of flexes a little bit to tell that company it might be time to step that up, or get that level. But what we're not hearing a lot of yet is that realization of, well, numbers, right or wrong, are driving the clicks, driving traffic.
That's right. And so that's what the data says. At Appcast, we publish a lot of this information. We got more research coming out about it because, in fact, it's such a hot issue. So, the companies have the ability to publish accurate data. So, like, if your issue is the estimates are wrong, you can solve that by not relying on a third-party estimate. But so anyway, there's no right or wrong answer here. All that I'm saying is it's a big deal. It's a macro trend. Like, this move to pay transparency not only is legal, there's a whole set of legal things going on in Colorado and in Massachusetts and in New York, but it's also kind of it's got impacts on recruitment marketing. So that's a big macro trend. The other macro trend is kind of content related on the job side, which is as a result of COVID, because the COVID period really exacerbated the war for talent in the blue collar space. So everyone thinks when you're talking about the war for talent, you're talking about software engineers in San Francisco. That ain't nothing compared to hiring truck drivers and warehouse workers and people working retail stores during COVID. I mean, it was broadswords and shields, and people bleeding all over the place.
I think that surprised a lot of people. I really think that a lot of people who hadn't done that type of hiring in the past were really surprised to see that bubble up.
Yeah, well, Andrew Flowers, who I think you guys have spoken to before, is our labor economist, and he's got this graph where it just shows demand and supply, and especially when you get into those frontline worker situations, the yaw was even greater. So what that forced companies to do was to try and figure out ways to sand the surfboard and kind of figure out how to make it work a little bit better.
Yeah.
And the reality is that because of that, it forced a lot of A/B testing in the role of content.
Mm-hmm.
So like figuring out how to talk about a job and understanding the impact that has, not just on conversion rate to an apply, but all the way to the hire. Like there are ways to write a job that actually improve the likelihood that your applicants are going to get hired. Everything from the title to how long it is to, like, we did some research with a professor at Harvard Business School, and we found that if you talk about 4 non-cash benefits, so not like how much money you make, but 4 non-cash benefits, it increases the apply rate by 22%. So think about that for a minute. Like if you 22%. So if you're spending $1, you will get 22% more applicants for that dollar if you just purely mention 4 non-cash benefits. And what I'd like everyone here to know is free coffee is a non-cash benefit. Every major company has free coffee. And like, I mean, it sounds goofy, but like you can, if you can't fix it, feature it. You can talk about a lot of stuff. And so, because at the end of the day, what that research said was, when you're talking about non-cash benefits, those ads are talking about what's in it for me, for the job seeker. We talk about what's in it for me. And so an organization that is thinking that way writes much better job ads from the lens of the job seeker. And that's marketing 101, but like we got forced to do it.
Well, yeah, look, I wouldn't disagree with you, but I would tell you that, and this came up on another show we talked about, and in one of our recent membership meetings, but job descriptions, the job ads, could be one of the lowest hanging fruit solutions. One of the easiest things to tackle. It's voluminous for the bigger corporations, right? But why are they still so shitty? They're so bad, Chris.
Well, the real answer is it goes to in my opinion, is that a lot of the fundamental job descriptions that go into the leveling that exists at big companies end up having job requirements that are in your HR ERP systems. And the integration between the HR ERP system and the applicant tracking system is like when you open up a requisition, you hit a button and whap, it comes on in. And people are like, yeah, that's fine. Slap it out there. Let's go. And they don't understand the delta. And so, yeah, man, I mean, it's a huge lift, but we're starting to see that change. And some of that's being driven by software. Some of our software and other people's software allows you to test one version of an ad versus another version and find out, oh, that one works way better. So that's really, that's kind of a big thing that's coming.
So I think the A/B testing for what works is pretty important, and I think it's probably something a lot of folks are not aware of, sort of even exists, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's also something like when you say A/B testing, blank stares. This is all marketing stuff, and yeah, I mean, not a lot of people understand what it is. The ability to run a mathematically valid test between 2 pieces of content. But as long as I've known you, Chris, we've talked about the transition from recruitment being fundamentally a sales operation, operations and sales, to moving towards more of, there is a marketing skill set that's very much involved here. And I mean, you got to do that type of stuff and understand it. Beyond those 2 things, I think that there's a big push on transparency. The job board world's a super interesting place. Do you know the largest buyer of job ads in the United States, who they are?
The largest buyer of job advertisements.
Buyers as a category of job ads in the United States.
No, who?
Other job sites.
I believe that.
So job site A goes and sells an employer, and they get a $10,000 budget. Okay.
Yeah.
They realize that they can only, satisfy 60% of the budget. And in a pay for performance model, if in fact you don't have enough clicks to earn, the full budget, you've got the reality that you may have sold $10,000, but you can only deliver $6,000, and that's leaving money on the table. So what do? You take that ad and you actually go buy traffic from other job sites. So like when you look at your source report and you see, oh, I got this hire from job site X.
Yeah. That's not really job site X.
Maybe. I mean, it could be. And
that's been going on for years and years and years.
It has been, but as the war for talent, especially in the blue collar space, increased, this happened more and more. The growth of pay for performance ad models and the need for, in a lot of places, more volume has led to this. The technical word is resyndication, and so more and more buyers are starting to understand that. Say, okay, hold on a second. If I'm going to buy direct, I want to know I'm just getting stuff from your site and your site. Right. And then if I want to basically bet the infield, which is go to everybody, which is what you should do. Think about this. Like, imagine in your 401k, if you only bought one stock, that's kind of dumb, right? Even if it's a great stock, like take a look at what's happened to the big tech stocks. All of a sudden they've gone down. You want to bet the infield. And so you want to have a mutual fund. And so this idea of saying, all right, if I buy direct from somebody, I just want to be able to get just their traffic, boom, boom. And then, whether it's something like our Appcast Accelerate platform or somebody else's, there's a mutual fund that you can buy. And within that, there's transparency about where all this stuff comes from. Gives you the ability to kind of have a clearer sense.
Yeah, well, so the analogy, I get it. It's a beautiful analogy, but of a managed account,
that's right?
I don't have time to pick out 75 different stocks to diversify and make sure. But what I think I hear you saying is taking that same approach and sort of diversifying gets us much more, safer return. Typically, we'd expect on that investment.
That's right. It's dollar cost averaging, all the stuff that literally, if you go talk to a financial advisor, these are the same things that, like, when you're thinking about making your job ad investments, it's important. And it's also one of the things that, I get asked this a lot. Hey, what's the best job site? Well, I don't know. And I do this for a living. The reality is that how your job operates within different marketplaces is a function of a whole series of things. And so understanding what works and what doesn't for you is always a function of, again, going back to that A/B test, try it, adjust, try it and adjust. And so in that environment, the ability to understand what is working and what isn't, not just from where you're getting applies.
Yeah.
This is again, going to the next macro point of transparency is the apply to hire ratio. There are huge differences depending on brands and jobs between, how they perform to getting a hire. And in like some cases, it's not like 5% better, it's double. So that means like you could see a situation where you're paying, let's say whether you're paying on pay for performance or you're buying a posting, it doesn't really matter. You put $500 into a job and you get 10 applies. Okay, so $50 an apply. And another site, you put $500 into a job and you get 20 applies. That, if you just looked at how much the applies cost, one is way more expensive and one is way cheaper. I'm not saying that this is always the case where when you pay more, you get more, because oftentimes it's the exact opposite. But what I am saying is that data shows that, like, there are places where, honestly, you could pay $250 and apply, and it still delivers a cheaper cost per hire than if you're getting, a $5 apply.
So I remember when the whole concept of, because we've been doing this a while, right? I'm going on 30 years in the space. You're going on the same, like, I feel like, and I think we're the same age. So I remember when the concept of PPC for jobs sort of broke ground. And my biggest complaint was as I don't know if I was an early adopter, but someone trying to invest in that tech early on before it had sort of been refined. My biggest complaint was my agency kept telling me, I said, look, it's not really performing. And they kept saying, just put more money in it.
Mhm.
Can you just put a little more money into the PPC and it'll be fine. It'll start to perform. And I just didn't have it. So it's that has always stuck with me up front. But let me ask you, I'm not going to ask you, Chris, what your favorite job board is or which one performs the best. But I do want to ask you, what do you think is kind of a common misconception people might have about programmatic job advertisement?
Well, so
Is it dump more money in it and it'll work? Is that the biggest one?
So people often think that programmatic job advertising is different than job advertising. It's not. So like, people will say, well, I already buy from this site and this site and this site, and now I want the programmatic. Well, if you go to an advertising agency or you go to another pure play, provider, like our friends over at, Jovio or PandoLogic or, us, the reality is that what programmatic means, at least to me, is the use of software to manage all your job ad buying. And so what that kind of inherent in that means that we're using software to manage what works and what doesn't by tracking the impression to the click to the apply to the hire. It's understanding what content works and what content doesn't. It's understanding the cost deltas between the different places that you can go. So it's not a discrete category. It's basically the use of software to manage your job board budget.
Yeah,
and
all of it.
And so that's where we spend a lot of time. And finally, the light bulb goes off saying, oh, I get it. We can use your stuff to make this whole thing better. Not just like, it's not just another source. And we're like, yeah, that's it. They're like, okay, cool. So that's it. The other thing that's, from a transparency standpoint, I think that, where does the apply come from? What applies actually get hired? Those are critical points. The other thing is that everybody needs to ask how you get paid. Okay, so like, Chris, when you were talking with an ad agency, they said just put more money into the PPC.
Yeah.
Do you know how ad agencies make money?
Would it be off the money I put in for the PPC?
They charge you a fee, and then there are commissions. And a commission is when a publisher pays an agency because they're bringing them the business. There is nothing wrong with having commissions whatsoever, as long as they are transparent. You as the buyer should know, okay, my agency gets paid 15% if they sell me Indeed or whatever it happens to be, and they get paid 35% if they sell something else. And that happens. So because different publishers want more business from different agencies, they will give them economic incentives to theoretically do it. Again, no problem. But this issue of transparency, like if you look outside of the kind of recruitment advertising space into the broader advertising space, over the last decade, there's been this move to fee transparency and understanding who gets paid and how. And I think that's something that's coming, in our direction. So all those things are important.
So I want to make sure I understand. So what I think I hear you saying is that that level of transparency, and we see this swell of this movement, right? Will trickle into countless aspects of what recruiting does, and with regards to the recruiting industry, right? So just beyond how much something costs, but like where does all the money go and who does it go to?
That's right. And it's, again, there's nothing wrong with publishers paying commissions, as long as whoever is hiring the agency or the programmatic provider understands, okay, that's how you get paid, right? So transparency is this big theme. Transparency in what we pay people, transparency in where the applies come from, transparency in who gets hired, transparency in terms of how everybody gets paid. If what we as an industry want to do is professionalize and become more like, let's say, the marketing technology industry or the online marketing industry, all these things are critical to that, because that's how you get more efficient, is you got to know which knobs to turn. And the only way you can do that is by understanding what works and what doesn't and how everybody gets paid.
Well, and it seems to me that the more transparent we become, the more we level that playing field a bit, right? And the more we see who some of the bad actors, right, are inside of that equation, and gives the buyers or the applicant, whatever side of that you may be on, options, right? More informed options.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
I
right.
love that. So look, Chris, I'm going to ask you, because we're right at, we try to keep these pretty snackable. So we're right at about 20 minutes or so, but let me ask you, if you were going to write a book today about the topic that we've just discussed, what do you think that title would be?
Recruitonomics, which happens. No, like honestly, Chris, I can answer this because I tried to write a book last year called Recruitonomics, and life got busy and it failed and the whole 9 yards. And so we decided to launch a blog on it and the whole, but the reason why I love that word and the name for that, first off, I think it's incredibly marketable, is talent acquisition in the environment that we're in, where we have relatively fluid marketplaces and we have people acting as more independent agents, right? Like when our parents worked, they worked for one or two companies.
Sure.
When I work, we work for 7 or 8. Our kids are going to work for 20 or 25. That means it's a much more fluid marketplace. Supply and demand is going to what really dictates how people get paid, and honestly, how like society works and how companies, make decisions on talent acquisition. And that's the combination of how good we actually are good operationally at our job, recruiting, right? And the other part of it is it's macroeconomics. And more than ever, it's going to become more fluid. And I think that's something that if I had to make a bet, like again, when we first started to know each other, the bet was that recruiting organizations were going to start to have their own marketing teams. That has come true.
Yep.
The bet I'm going to make is by the time our kids have our jobs, recruiting organizations are going to have their own economic intelligence units to try and really understand talent supply and demand in their markets.
Yeah, I could get behind that. I mean, we already see some of that. We see economists leaking over and offering intelligence to the HR teams, right?
Yeah.
And from a talent management perspective and talent planning. That might be here sooner than you think.
Maybe.
All right. Well, look, Chris, you wrote the book. Who gets the first signed copy?
My father.
Oh, you're killing me.
Sorry. He gave me the first signed copy of his book, so I got to return the favor.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. Look, Chris, I want to thank you for being on the show. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to kick you over into the green room, but I'm so grateful of your time today. We really appreciate you.
Thanks, brother.
Good stuff, man. All right. I just want to remind everybody a couple of things. cxr.org/events. That's where you go to see what's next. So not just for our members meetings and alumni meetings, but also for the podcast show. We throw some stuff out there. Of course, you can find everything just podcast at cxr.org/podcast. And then we have a lecture series as we round into the last half of the year. We have done this monthly. It is a big hit. You can also ask for the topics there. Those topics are chosen by our leaders and our members. And we do one a month from a lecturer or a speaker that we acquire from anywhere around the world. I want to give a quick shout out here at the end for the folks who are in the chat stream. Some of you we threw up there, some of we didn't. Mohammed, Michelle, Dina, David. Thanks, guys, for chiming in. We really appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody for being on the show. And we will see you in a week.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works, facebook.com and twitter.com/careercrossroads, and on Instagram at careerxroads. We'll catch you next time.